How's it going, guys? It's Mike from Mike Projects and Hobbies, and today I want to do a little review on the Royal Enfield Himalayans since she's finally kind of all one color, and the retro enduro look that I was going for is starting to happen. Um, it's not really a final review because it's kind of a fluid thing. It's always changing, and I still have some things I want to change or modify rather, not change. Um, I'd like to start off saying I love the bike still. The bike's amazing. Yeah, you guys that ride them, you know what I'm talking about. You you take it out for a ride and it just makes you happy. I don't know. It's weird. I don't get it, but they have a recipe for a bike that just puts a smile on your face. Um, and you guys that ride them know what I'm talking about. So let's take a look and disregard my microphone on my hat. But I figured maybe a better mic might work better as far as providing better audio. The microphone, I'm using my iPhone for this, which isn't the greatest, but sometimes when you get the iPhone too far away, the microphone doesn't work as well. So we're trying something else. Um, so hopefully the audio is better. But let's take a look at the Himalayan. Um, at the state she happens to be in now, and we'll talk about the modifications I've done. And the big thing is the weight savings I've incurred by removing things that I probably would have never used to begin with. Um, I don't really ever plan on riding the Himalayan any great distances. If anything, I'm going to more than likely toss it in the back of the truck to ride on BDRs because I don't feel like riding all the way to Yuma, Arizona from where I live on the highway with it. And again, you guys that ride them know what I'm talking about. It's not a highway bike. Um, and then going, on maybe the Southern California BDR. Um, that's what I wanted to build it up to do. Make it lighter, possibly make it more reliable, and maybe easier to maintain on the trail, and still capable of carrying, the required equipment for a multi-day trip on the BDR, which would include probably camping in the desert. So some camping gear and food and water and you know all that stuff. You guys at camp, you know where I'm coming from. So anyway, let's take a look at the bike. I figured we could. The last review I did, I stuck little post-it notes all over the bike, and that was actually a pretty good idea. But I kind of ran out of post-it notes, so I'm going to just start from the bottom and work my way up. Maybe the bottom front, work my way up, and then aft, and then yeah, we'll talk about the modifications to the bike. There's a new girl in the stable right there. She's pretty cool. Um, I'll be doing obviously some reviews on her, and the wife has shown interest in writing her versus again. So I'm probably going to remove the center stand on that guy, lower it back down with the lowering links, put some bar risers on it so I can lower the front forks a little bit. I mean, she's only 4'11", so I don't have a choice but to lower the bike for her. I've done some work on the KLX over there. She's a ripper as far as a KLX 300 can be. Anyway, so let's talk about this bike. Okay, there she is. Let's do a little walk around real quick. It's no longer gray, she's white. And obviously has a different look to her. So anyway, let's start at the front. So if you haven't watched my other reviews, you don't know rather that one of the first things I did was switch over to Bart tubeless rims. They're aluminum XL rims, and they've had the Bart tubeless tape added to the center over the spokes. They've held up well. They don't leak. I've probably put 3,500 miles on them. A few hours off road, some pretty aggressive, stupid off road, single track stuff I probably shouldn't have done, which caused me to, tip over a few times, but that's what happens when you go off-road. Anyway, those have been holding up well. On those rims, I have Mitas tires. I got the Dakar on the front, EO7 Dakar, EO7 Plus Plus in the rear. And those are doing really well. I'm pretty happy with those on road and off-road. Of course, nothing works great in sand, but they do everything else here in the type of dirt that we have here in Southern California. You may have noticed I have a black brake on there. That is a brake caliper off of a Harley-Davidson 750. It's a direct swap onto the Himalayan, basically, and it even utilizes the Himalayan brake pads. The benefit of that caliper is the pistons inside are 2 millimeters larger than the caliper that comes on the Himalayan from the factory. So it gives you a lot more clamping pressure. You wouldn't think it would be that much more, but it's pretty substantial. The thing has a crazy amount of brake now. So yeah, no more crying about weak brakes, especially on this Himalayan. And I put the pads right out of my Himalayan caliper right into the Harley-Davidson caliper. They're the EBC HH pads, and it's been working great. So work our way up. Fork gators always have a problem with popping off down here. Some of you guys may have noticed that. So I cleaned mine up, cleaned up the fork tubes here and everything so that these could slide better. But I put a little zip tie to help anchor that there. I made a little riser kit for my fork brace. Obviously there's no fender here, but got to retain the fork brace. Went down to Ace Hardware and picked up some Allen screws and some spacers. Put that all together. Going up here, we have some driving lights from Amazon. A lot of Amazon parts on this bike. And I used some RC, what are they? They're called Tough something. Light mounts. Pretty substantial light mounts. I'm pretty impressed with them. They're beefy, they're solid, they're not going anywhere. And so, yeah, that's working out really well. The fork tubes themselves, up top here, I installed some fork tube extensions. Who is that from in the UK? I'll have to look it up. And of course, everything I'll put in a link, if I can remember, in the description. So anyway, these extensions are probably about this long. And they screw into the top of the fork tube, which is about right here now. And it allows you to slide the fork down and give yourself more ground clearance. So my front end's about 1 inch higher than a factory Himalayan. The fender is an Acerbis retro fender that goes with the Acerbis Elba retro Enduro number plate / headlight. That's an interesting look. I kind of like it. This is a Pugue windscreen for a Husqvarna, I want to say 500. And I printed up some 3D adapters to get that to work out. LED turn signals, again from Amazon. And let's see, we have some handguards here, aluminum frame with a plastic deflector for the wind. Again, Amazon. All I did to get this to work here was I found a washer or spacer that filled the void inside the bar end weight, and I got a longer screw. Again, at Ace Hardware, had this countersunk looking washer here, so I utilized those and tightened that in there. And then on the inside, you just mount the hardware so that it works for you. These aren't real soft, but they're bendable. So I kind of like that. You can custom build it, or bend it rather, so that everything fits the way you want. Let's cruise around to the other side. See what we got over here. Oh, yes. So part of my conversion of removing the instrument cluster and the front fairing and the windshield and the headlight and doing this, I had to find a place to put the key. So I 3D printed a bracket for a key switch that goes in here. And You know, it's on off just like that. Seems to work good. It's clamped around the portion of the fork tube that sticks up. You might recall on the other side it stuck up a little higher. Obviously the same bracket and driving light on this side. Kind of remounted the horn a little bit to make it work out with everything that's been removed and or added. We'll talk about that here in a second. Adjustable levers. I put these on probably at about the same time I put on the tubeless, Spark tubeless wheels. Again, Amazon, they're pretty decent, fully adjustable. They've held up well, not really crashed, you know, with any serious force on them, so they haven't had to withstand any impacts, but they're holding up good, feel good. Have the double take mirrors, Oxford heated grips. It's the Oxford Adventure. If you put a pair of heated grips on here, those of you that have done it already, you'll know that the throttle tube in here is like a porcupine, a bunch of little things sticking up. You'll have to shave that down with a knife. I used a regular carpet knife, and then some sandpaper, and then glued this on with the glue that comes with it. You have to, you know, the wire looks kind of funky, but you got to leave it mounted in a way that you can still turn the throttle and not get caught up on anything. Moving across, there's a 3D bracket here. We'll look at the other side here in a minute. That I printed. It's two pieces. It clamps onto the handlebars. You can see that. There's 4 bolts here. The second piece is back there. I 3D printed that, and that supports the the instrument cluster now. The bracket that I removed, the metal bracket from Royal Enfield, I want to say it weighed 2.5 pounds, and it was a 2.5 pound bracket to support this 7-ounce instrument cluster. This thing literally weighs nothing. As you also notice, my little tripper thing is gone. I found that useless, so out. Cylinder head temperature from Trail Tech stuck right there. I don't know if I'm going to leave it there or not. Moving across, we got the light switch for the driving lights, and we got a RAM ball there for either a phone or a GPS or something with a RAM mount that you might want to mount. Let's look at the other side of, if we can, maybe we can get in there. The bracket here for the instrument cluster, it uses all the OEM mounting points. Let's see if I can get up here on. Can I move this forward a little bit? Maybe. But anyway, you get the idea. The bracket comes up, it's clamped on, it comes up. You know, it's about this wide. This piece is glued to that. There's a riser piece there, and the cross brace is glued and screwed to that. And then the 3 main bolts for attaching the instrument clusters on there. This is another custom piece that I printed that's glued and screwed here, and it supports the windshield. When I had the clip-on visor up here, it was putting a lot of pressure pushing this back. It really didn't block much wind, but it smoothed the wind out. So not as much weird blast and turbulence, much smoother on the helmet. I took it off for cleaning the bike up. It's over there in the toolbox. But anyway, that supports the windshield. I put a nice piece of soft leather on the front. Don't know how long or how far that'll go towards keeping it from scratching, but it's there. So let's go back down a little bit and talk about the engine. The engine itself is completely stock internals. I'm not one that's big on trying to get more performance out of that motor. It's an air-cooled 400. It is what it is. It's a long stroke engine made for torque. And you guys that ride them off-road know what I'm talking about. You can pop it into gear, basically dump the clutch and give it a little gas, and up the hill you'll go. Pretty amazing. So yeah, the engine is completely stock. The fuel injection is gone, and I put a carburetor from, I want to say it's probably a 2017 or 2018. You can get these carburetor kits from Hitchcock's. The choke is now here. It still uses a throttle position sensor for information to feed to the ECU on, you know, where you have the throttle, what kind of demand you're putting on the engine. Airbox is completely stock with the stock intake cover. I do have a K&N filter. K&N filters work good if you keep them clean, and that's the big part. It's not a good filter for a lazy person. So just about any time you change the engine oil, or at least every other time, you should be taking your K&N out, washing it with soap and water, letting it thoroughly dry, and then re-oiling it. A dry K&N is basically useless. It'll let dust and dirt through. So you don't want to do that. I'm only at 4,000, a little over 4,000 miles, so still running the stock chain and sprockets. I clean my chains frequently and lube them probably every 300 miles, which is only 2 rides to work really for me, maybe 3 rides to work. I try to take care of them. Most of my bikes, I get over 30,000 miles out of a chain and sprockets, and that's what I've always done. Clean them, lube them. And yeah, there's people that say you don't lube O-ring chains, but that's nonsense. Yes, there is lubrication inside between the O-rings, but the O-rings will dry out and fall off if you don't keep the chain lubed. So you guys that are preaching to people not to lube their O-ring chain, you should probably stop. I did check this because this is rubbing on some Himalayans. The hose is rubbing against that bolt, and it's cutting a hole in it. So if you have a Himalayan, you might want to check that. Also, another place that it rubs, let's see if I can get the camera around here, is this line right here is touching the frame right there on some, and it's starting to saw a hole through that hard line. So keep an eye on that. We had Givi or Givi, however you want to pronounce it. It's Italian. You come up with your own name that makes you happy, and we're all good. Crash bars. Looking at all the designs, these look like probably the most robust ones you could get for Himalayan. I do say this section and on the other side should have probably gone in here and come out. Just like that. Because this part does interfere with your shins if you're taller. It's not much, but you can feel this when you're riding. It's pushing your legs out. So yeah, it's just enough to be annoying. But you get used to it. It's no longer annoying for me. I know it's there. I know what it is. On this side, part of the carburation kit was to add, see if I can get under here, you can see it, a block-off plate for the fuel pump. And that plate is fitted for a petcock with an on-off reserve. And it has 2 standpipes that go up, standard motorcycle style for fuel. I added a fuel filter here. Fuel line obviously goes over to the carburetor. Relocated the reservoir for the rear master brake. That kit comes with the Givi crash guards. Have a Hitchcock's oil temperature gauge inside the oil filler plug. Works great. I like being able to look down and see what's going on with the temperature. If you get caught in the summertime in stop and go traffic or just stopped traffic, that needle will come right on up to 100 C, which seems pretty darn warm. So letting you know you need to get moving and get some air through that oil cooler on the other side to keep it from overheating. Also on this side, we can see that we have the Delkevic full exhaust. That was a weight savings. Stock exhaust, I think the muffler was, I want to say 11 pounds, and the head pipe was 7, so almost 18 pounds. This entire exhaust system was right at 7 pounds. So it's a 10-pound saving, a good solid 10 pounds. With the bracketry that I removed here that supports the racks that used to be here, and the brackets that I removed for the instrument cluster, and the bracket that supports the headlight, and then I removed my rear pannier racks and my rear luggage rack, combined with the wheel savings, because the front wheel now is half the weight of the stock wheel. The back wheel, I only saved maybe 3 pounds. The weight savings of the exhaust, I have this bike down to about 398 pounds fully fueled. So yeah, you can do the math on that. And it feels like a different bike. It really is much, much better. Let's see, going back, we get the exhaust. We talked about the carb, the petcock. Coming up, that's a stock seat. And this mesh cover makes a stock seat tolerable. You can easily sit on it for an hour and a half now without issues. The stock seat's not bad, but most seats, An hour is about it. You're going to start getting a sore butt after an hour because you're not going to have airflow. Your pants are going to start, jamming up and getting moist and going to get monkey butt, and you're not going to be happy. So yeah, get some airflow in there. That really does, for the money. That's will turn a bad seat into an okay seat, or even a good seat. I have one on my Africa Twin as well, and we rode. Late last year we did a big loop around Grand Canyon, and I don't think my butt hurt once. I mean, maybe on one stint we went 2 hours without stopping, and yeah, I started to feel it then. But I mean, the key to long distance riding is taking some breaks. You don't just sit there and pound out the pound out the miles hour after hour, because that's not fun. All right, moving towards the back. It's a standard Himalayan rear fender with the matching turn signals that were in the front. I added straps for pulling, pushing, whatever, since there's no rear rack to hang on to anymore. So, getting stuck or picking the bike up, there's always that now. I put these loops here so I could cinch things under the Hitchcock's rear seat delete. Because I have the taillight extension bracket here that goes to the back of the taillight and moves it back. The taillight's normally sitting about right here, so this was bent up to match this, but my taillight's further back, so I heated this up and bent it down. And earlier I talked about, future mods or some more changes that I want to make, and I ordered, a sheet of aluminum to make an aluminum version of that, because this is plastic and it's going to break. I know it is. But the idea is good. And, I guess I have the hardware now to make an aluminum one. So I paid whatever it cost for some hardware. Anyway, I'll get that to work out. License plate. The inner fender I just cut off flush with the outer fender. And this license plate bracket is from Amazon. And it's just bolted right to the fender. Drilled 2 holes, mounted it, license plate on. That's how that was done. I kind of skipped over the front suspension, and we'll get back to that. And it just reminded me, I have a Hagen shock on the rear, and I also have shorter links in the suspension, which those things combined lifted the rear about 1 inch. That's why it may look taller than some Himalayans, because it is. Up on the center stand, the tire is almost touching the ground, so it's about its max limit there. The front suspension, I have Racetech Gold emulators in it, set with the medium springs for valving, and I put Racetech springs in the forks for my weight. I used their little online calculator, told them the kind of riding I did, or you enter the kind of riding that you do, put your weight in, and if you like a softer ride, a firmer ride, and it comes up with a number, and you place an order for springs with that number. If you ride off-road at all I'm going to say is you should do it. It makes a massive difference. You can almost see that bracket in there. Anyway, kind of proud of that bracket. It looks pretty cool. Let's see, moving on. I think we might be getting close to talking about everything there is to talk about. I have a Hitchcock's adjustable side stand. And like I said, I have a Hagen shock and the Hitchcock shorter suspension links, which, raise the suspension and give me another inch of travel, or inch of clearance at least. Those are, I think I mentioned it earlier, those are Midas or Midas. It's an EO7 Plus on the back and EO7 Dakar on the front. The Dakar is a harder compound. It's a little slippery on cold, wet surfaces, and I found that out the hard way riding to work this winter. Don't push those in the corner when it's cold and wet. That's all I got to say about that. I didn't go down, but it was interesting. Nothing like having your front end wash out when you're nice and set up into a corner and enjoying life. Gee, I don't know. What else we got going here? That might be everything. We covered carburetor, air filter, exhaust, the instrumentation, the driving lights, the front brake, the wheels. IMS Super Sport Foot pegs. Awesome. Love them. I have them on my KLX. A version of them comes as the Enduro package on the BMW. I think I also have a set of these. No, just on the KLX. So KLX, the Himalayan, and the BMW. I thought my wife's KLX might have had IMS pegs, but it doesn't. And yes, top speed, 75 miles an hour. I thought that was kind of funny. Let's see. I think that might be all. If you guys have questions about anything, toss those questions down in the comments, and we'll see if we can find some answers. There's got to be answers to questions, right? On my Dekelvik, I have that's the 14-inch oval, and I have the Dekelvik spark arrestor in there. I've run the bike with it, with no baffle at all, and with the baffle that comes with it. And the bike seems to have a smoother, more powerful, initial throttle roll on with the spark arrestor in it. Do you lose top end? I don't know. The bike still goes 75, 80 miles an hour. It doesn't feel like you lose top end, but it smooths out the bottom end for sure. I do not have an O2 sensor on there. I have a O2 delete chip from Kawasaki Brad out of Canada. It plugged right into the harness, and it just tricks the ECU, because I still have an ECU in here that controls, ignition timing and things like that, and spark and all the good stuff. Even though I don't have fuel injection, it's still controlling some other things. So it does need some inputs to continue to function, or it'll throw check engine lights like anything else. So the O2 delete chip plugged right into the harness, and it makes the ECU think that there's a functioning O2 sensor on the motorcycle. Oh, and something else I did recently when I had the gas tank off this last time was, let's see if you can see it right in here, I did the air injection delete. And I also, quite some time ago, did the canister delete underneath the engine. One of the reasons I did that was one day, I came out to open my fuel tank, and the thing literally blew open, and with tremendous force. I mean, I've never seen a gas tank pressurized that much before. Kind of crazy. So first thing I did was rip the gas tank off, rip the evap system out, and just vent the tank to the atmosphere. Hasn't been a problem since. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Oh, well, I installed this tank, the fuel sending unit that controls the fuel gauge. I bent, let's see, which way did I bend the float rod? I think I bent it down like half an inch. So now, and I just noticed the other day, at half a tank, it holds 2 gallons. And I ran it down to 3/4, a quarter of a tank. And I put in 2.8 gallons. So the gas gauge is a lot closer than it used to be, which that's cool. Before it was, it would run all the way down to where it almost is right now, maybe a little higher. And I'd pull into the gas station to fill up, and it would only hold like 1.8 gallons. It's like, come on, man. We're near empty. So that's always use your odometer as your gas gauge. Gas gauges on motorcycles have always been flaky. Very rarely will you get a gas gauge on a motorcycle that actually works. It's just kind of a gimmick, if anything. I mean, I wish instead of gas gauges, they would come up with a way like maybe Harley Davidson and a few other manufacturers. Actually, Kawasaki did it back in the 80s, but self-canceling turn signals. I mean, we have electronic sensors that are sensing the speed. You're telling me you can't come up with a chip that will turn the turn signals off after you roll forward maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile or less? Anyway, I guess that's an argument for another day. Lazy engineers, maybe? Or maybe there's some kind of weird law that you can't have self-canceling turn signals on a motorcycle in the United States, because I know some bikes used to have them. And I think Harley Davidson still has them. I could be wrong. So anyway, like I said before, if you have any questions, toss them in the comment section. I'll try to answer them. I'm going to see if I can dig up some links for the modifications that I've done or the changes I've made and put them in the description eventually. Um, and if you enjoyed the video, thumbs up. And if you can, subscribe. It'll help. You guys have a good one. Ride safe.